Story 1. This happened when I was in my first year of high school, around late 2019 or so. Class ended early and I was bored with nothing to do. So I went to my previous elementary school since it only took me 5 minutes by walking to go there. I also missed the days I spent there, being nostalgic and all, so I thought it'd be fun. It was Saturday afternoon, around 1 p.m., so most kids had already gone home, leaving only the kids with extracurricular activities at the school. Some of the teachers recognized me, so I talked to them about how I've been and all, and asked one of them if I could go inside my old classroom since it seemed to be empty. The teacher allowed, kind of joked too by saying, "What, you want to be an elementary schooler again?" But reminded me that I needed to get out at 13:30 since an extracurricular activity is going to take place there. It was 13:20 when I asked, so I said okay and went inside the class. I spent the little time I had looking around, enamored at how despite the school being renovated in 2018, some of the stuff my old class had made or left is still in the classroom. I was reminiscing too much that I forgot about the time limit, and by the time I was looking at a Japanese calendar I made back then, it was just a normal calendar, but with Japanese celebration days below the dates and all. There were already 3 kids inside the class. One of them asked, "Are you a substitute teacher?" While the other 2 looked pretty scared, I turned around and walked to them with a calendar still in my hand. But before I even said anything, another kid said, "Koinobori," while pointing at the background I used for the calendar. For context, koinobori are carp-shaped windsocks that are used to celebrate Children's Day in Japan, which happens on May 5th every year. Another kid quickly realized and said, "So you are a teacher?" I was still confused, but since they pointed out the koinobori background, I said, "Oh, you're right. I'm surprised you know what koinobori is," which one of them replied, "Of course. Teacher name X taught us 2 weeks ago." And that's where it clicked for me. They were members of the Japanese club, and they thought I was another teacher since I was holding the Japanese calendar I made back when I was still a student there. I remember the Japanese club being made when I was about to graduate, so I didn't have a chance to join and didn't know much. But I know that my Japanese teacher back then was also the teacher for this club. We got along well, since I was a weeb. Yes, I was that annoying weeb who would end their sentence with desu, or say stuff with broken Japanese to my friends. No, I'm a better weeb now, and would always ask her about the language. I figured, since I still am learning Japanese regularly, and I got along well with the teacher, where's the harm of entertaining these students? Honestly, even without me saying anything, the students were already telling me their names and told me about what the actual teacher taught the previous week. I learned that all 3 of them like anime as well, one even as much of a weeb as I was. Unfortunately, the teacher taught hiragana the previous week, one of the 3 Japanese writing systems. So I decided to turn my laptop on and played a Detective Conan opening without sound. See here, that Detective Conan opening video had the lyrics written in hiragana, with any kanji having hiragana letters on top of it too, at the bottom. So I told them to translate the hiragana to romaji, Roman letters. They said okay, and they got to work. It went kind of well, frankly speaking. Since there were only 3 students, it wasn't difficult to control them. I would sit beside them, and they'll ask about a hiragana they didn't remember or didn't know of for about 15 minutes, until the teacher finally came inside the class. The actual teacher was confused. I don't think she even recognized me at the time she walked in, so she just asked, "Wait, what?" One of the kids quickly chimed in and said, "Teacher, we've been studying with him." She looked at me for a moment, until a smile formed on her face. Finally recognizing me, we talked about the usual teacher-graduated student conversation topics until I explained what happened, which made her laugh for a bit. She then explained the situation to the students, which made them apologize to me for quickly assuming things and stuff. I told them it was fine, they smiled and went back to translate the Conan opening. I stayed up for the rest of the extracurricular activity, mostly talking to the students about the newest My Hero Academia episode until all 3 of them finished translating the opening. The students were sad to know that I won't be coming again. This honestly made me really happy, but the teacher calmed them down by saying, I'm sure he will come again, he never has anything to do after all. Which made them laugh. And yeah, that was the end. I don't have the teacher's contact, so I planned to visit them unannounced in early 2020. But the pandemic happened, and I don't know if I will ever have the chance to visit them again before I graduate from high school. I'm in my second year now. The cringe weeb, I'm sorry, but it has to be said. Student actually gave me his line ID, but I guess he deleted his account or something, since I don't see him on my contact list anymore. He used to message me about the anime he just watched or something about the language he didn't understand, which never fails to make me smile. But yeah, I'm unable to contact them nowadays, which is kind of sad. Story 2. I attended first grade at a super conservative private school. I'm only 5 days older than the cutoff for being in kindergarten, so I'm the smallest kid in class, smaller than even all of the girls. My parents thought about waiting a year to send me, but I'm told I was super smart and bored at home, which pretty much condemned me to never having a chance to compete for most sports teams. More good background info: I'm the byproduct of a teenage pregnancy. My parents got married to do the right thing, but because of that my dad works a factory job and money is super tight. I'm pretty sure in retrospect my grandparents were paying for the private school tuition. We lived in what would be considered a rough neighborhood, and they didn't want me in the public schools. All of my clothes come from garage sales. I'm the stereotype of the kid who gets picked on in school. Little, poor, poorly dressed, nerdy. Despite that fact, most of the kids in my class were actually very nice to me. Like any school though, there are a couple of little sociopath bullies, even at 6 years old. The ringleader is Charlie. Charlie is big. Charlie is dumb. Charlie picks on me all the time at recess and during lunch. Lunch is in our classroom at our desks, but our normal teacher gets break time and some ancient old lady comes in to supervise. She never notices anything. Charlie is like every transformer ever. I have 2 GoBots. Charlie pushes me down at recess. He teases me relentlessly. He has a toady or two, and they're smart enough not to tease me when teachers are looking. Charlie makes my life sort of miserable. The one time I told a teacher what he's doing to me, I got some nonsense from them on the playground about turning the other cheek, and the bullying just got worse. A few months into the school year, Charlie starts taking and eating things from my lunch. At this point in time, my favorite food in the entire world is spicy beef sticks, like a Slim Jim. Mom gets them from the little grocery store and butcher up on the corner. I know treats like that are a financial sacrifice for the family, but Mom loves me and puts one in my lunch every day. Charlie learns he likes beef sticks too, and starts taking just that out of my lunch. Finally one day, I told my mom I don't want beef sticks in my lunch anymore. I can't tell her I'm being picked on, but she sees through me. Grilling ensues. I cry like a baby and tell her everything. I don't want her buying them so that another jerk can just take and eat them. At this point, most parents would call the school or Charlie's parents. My mom had to grow up quickly when I came along, and in some ways she just stopped growing up altogether. No way in hell she's gonna call the school, so she gets in the car, drives to the store, pet food aisle. These will do nicely. Mom has a plan. We replace the beef sticks in my lunch with dog treats. Don't tell Charlie what he's eating. Not on the first day, not on the second day. Act normal. Act upset. Wait until he's eaten almost all of them. Day 1, it worked. Day 2, keep eating that horsey goodness, Charlie. Like a week goes by. Finally, it's Friday. Today is the day. I put the bag of dog treats on my desk and make sure Charlie doesn't see it. Lunch rolls around. I wait until Charlie steals my beef stick and goes back to his desk. I wait until he's chewing on it. I pull the bag out of my desk and show everyone. I point and yell, "Charlie's eating dog treats." The plan goes off perfectly like it's Mission Impossible. Charlie spits the half-eaten dog treat out on the desk and starts gagging like he's going to throw up. Some other boys start barking at him. The entire class is yelling and laughing and barking. Charlie gets up crying and runs out of the classroom. The old lady lunch monitor has no clue what just happened. She's only concerned some kid just ran out of the classroom and heads off to find him. The rest of us finish eating and go off to recess. I'm like a hero. I share the details of my heroic plan with other kids. No sign of Charlie all recess. Back to class. Teacher returns. Math or something. The vice principal comes in. The disciplinarian, the guy with the wooden paddle on the wall who will spank you for acting up. I have to go to his office. I'm about to burst out crying already. I'm so scared. I find my mom is already there and Charlie is sitting in a chair crying. Charlie's mom is there too. It looks like he wet his pants and has thrown up on himself. Moms go into the office with the vice principal. Lots of yelling. I figure I'm done for. Mom comes out, tells me to go back to class. Charlie's mom comes out and tells him he's grounded for stealing and picking on me. Then she tells my mom it will never happen again. From then on Charlie is nice. Super nice. He even invites me to his birthday party. I gave him a gabbat. Story 3. This didn't happen to me. I was more of a bystander that time. I was still a nursing student then, but because I was in my last year, I worked like a RN, registered nurse, and all of that was pre-COVID. So we are an academic hospital, so we've got a nursing school and new doctors come here to do their residency. The new resident was this kind of snobby young doctor everyone hates. He depended on the nurses for stuff like laying catheters, putting EVs in, etc. But on the other hand, he talked down to the nursing staff and well just flirted with the young nurses. Male nurses, like me, are just men who were too dumb to become doctors. Yeah, really lovable kind of guy. We had a new patient with some allergies and so on. Hey, please give the patient X medication, which was a risky one. Turned out the patient wasn't allergic to that, but it was real possible that he could be. Yeah, I have to intervene. The patient could have had an allergic reaction to this. The senior nurse tried to tell him, but he cut her off. Hey, do you have a medical degree or do I? How about doing your job, nurse? It got silent. Deadly silent. Like in Western, when the two gunslingers face each other. Every nurse, doctor, staff in earshot was deadly silent. All eyes laid on those two. The senior nurse smiled and said, "Fine. Right. You're the doctor. I am the nurse." Then left. The new resident celebrated this as his big victory. It was like in prison when the newbie defended himself and gained a bit of respect. But then came her sweet lil revenge. Most nurses were at the front desk during that night shift. Just talking, drinking the third cup of coffee, making paperwork, and so on. The senior nurse came to all and said, "Hey, you may have witnessed what happened with the new resident. We are just nurses, you know. Maybe we should only do the minimal effort for his patients, as he is the doctor and we are just nurses." Everyone liked that. So we did, don't worry. Nobody died. We are not in the IQ with the deadly cases. He was the last one to receive the files he requested. His X-rays took longer than the ones of the other doctors, and no nurses were getting him anything non-work related when he asked for it. We don't have to. But if a doctor asks really nicely, we get him a cup of coffee, etc. And then it comes. The glory day of revenge. It was after a round with the cool attending doctor, who was basically Dr. Cox from Scrubs. The new resident wasn't done with some of his diagnosis because he had to get everything himself. All of his X-rays were at the front desk. No nurse was bothered to get it for him. He had the hands full with laying catheters and putting in IVs, because most of the time he asked a nurse and well, no nurse had time for him because they had some paperwork to do. Make some beds, change some bedpans, bring a patient to the X-ray. Because, you know, we are just nurses. He had to work overtime more often to finish his work. He was not happy. "A word, please," the new resident asked the attending doctor. The doctor was sipping his coffee while looking at an X-ray. "Yes? Where can I complain about the nursing staff?" The doctor puts down the X-ray, crosses his arms and asks, "If you got complaints, you go to me first. I think the nursing staff is against me, really." Well, no surprise, newbie. You treated them really badly. I'll tell you now one thing they seem to not have taught you in your fancy med school. The nurses are nearly running the hospital. And you screwed up with one of the senior nurses, and now you have to deal with it. The attending comes to rescue, ended after med school, you understand me? The new resident looked like that shocked Pikachu meme. While nearly the whole staff was watching this, and the senior nurse was pleased. The new resident came crawling to apologize to her later that shift. Now he don't get the minimal treatment anymore. But not the maximal treatment like the attending doctor. He's still a little jerk, but the senior nurse taught him a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the nurses. Story 4. It was during winter break of my sophomore year in high school. My mom had surprised me with tickets to the theme park as an early Christmas present. She knew I'd been having a rough time lately. My grades weren't the best, and I'd just gone through a breakup with my first girlfriend. The theme park was exactly what I needed to lift my spirits. The day started great. I went on several rides, had some cotton candy, and was feeling better than I had in weeks. Then came the incident at the Superman roller coaster, the park's biggest attraction. I'd been waiting in line for about 45 minutes, and I was finally next in line. Just one more car and I'd be up. That's when I heard her behind me. She was yelling at her boys to hurry up and push through the line. I turned around to see a woman in her 40s wearing designer clothes and too much makeup, pushing her 2 kids forward. The boys looked around 12 and 14. When I pointed out that I'd been waiting for almost an hour, she dismissed me completely. She had the nerve to say I was practically an adult and could wait for the next one since these were just kids. I told her I was only 16 and reminded her that I'd been standing there the whole time. She ignored me and told her kids to go ahead, calling me difficult. The older kid tried to squeeze past me, but I stood my ground. That's when the operator announced the next car was ready. As I started walking toward the platform, I suddenly felt something hook around my ankle. Before I could react, I was falling face first onto the concrete. Pain shot through my nose and forehead as I hit the ground. Karen started yelling at the operator, trying to get her boys onto the ride while falsely claiming that I had been trying to cut in front of her children. I pulled myself up, feeling blood dripping from my nose. My phone had fallen out of my pocket in the fall, and I quickly grabbed it to call my mom, who was waiting in the food court area. I told her she needed to come to the Superman ride immediately because a woman had tripped me and I was bleeding. Karen tried to deflect blame, shouting that I was being dramatic and had probably just tripped over my own feet. She kept trying to push her kids toward the ride. The operator had seen everything and immediately called security through their radio. My mom arrived within minutes, and when she saw my bloody face, she confronted Karen, demanding to know if she had put her hands on her child. Karen tried to defend herself by starting to explain how I had supposedly prevented her children from getting on the ride. But my mom shoved her backward before she could finish. Security arrived just as Karen was about to retaliate. The security guard ordered everyone to freeze and asked what was happening. The operator explained everything they'd witnessed. The security cameras had caught the whole incident, and other people in line backed up my story. The guard called the police while another guard took Karen and her kids to the security office. The police arrived quickly. After reviewing the security footage and taking statements, they arrested Karen for assault of a minor. Turns out she had a record of similar incidents at other theme parks. She'd been banned from 2 others for aggressive behavior. The theme park's management was incredibly apologetic. They gave me immediate first aid, complimentary passes for a full year, and even threw in some meal vouchers. My nose wasn't broken, thankfully, just bruised and scraped. The best part? Karen got banned for life from the theme park, and because she violated her probation from previous incidents, she had to serve community service hours. I heard through the grapevine that she spent 6 weekends picking up trash along the highway. As for her kids, their father showed up to pick them up. He apologized profusely to me and my mom, explaining that he was in the middle of a custody battle with Karen. He thanked us, saying this incident would help his case significantly. I finally got to ride the roller coaster that day after getting patched up, of course. The park staff even let me sit in the front car. It was the best ride of my life, made even sweeter by the knowledge that karma had finally caught up with Karen. Story 5. So I, early 30s, male, am at my local grocery store in the meat section. I was looking to buy ground beef so I could make pasta sauce. I walk up to the cooler where they keep the beef. There is an elderly man taking his time looking for something. I stand a good distance away from him so that we're socially distant. Then a lady walks up to me and the following conversation ensues. "Why are you standing there?" "I'm waiting for that gentleman to finish so I can look in there." "What is it you're looking for?" "Ground beef." She then walks over to the cooler next to the man, reaches in, takes out a package, then walks back and hands it to me. "Here you go." I look at what she handed me. It's some sort of plant-based beef alternative. Now I have nothing against vegans and vegetarians. My mom is vegetarian and my aunt is vegan. Although in my aunt's case it's for health reasons, but I'm not one. This isn't what I want. Yes, it is. It's vegan. It's better for you and better for the planet too. Now I have no idea what is in this stuff, but I highly doubt it's all that much healthier for you than real beef. Plus, I've heard that these vegan meats contain soy, which is bad for you if you eat too much of it. I highly doubt that. In any case, I don't want it. Now could you please put it back? No, it's important that you buy it. The more people who buy it, the less animals are harmed, and the meat industry will have no choice but to shut down. Well, you buy it then, but I'm making pasta sauce from scratch, and I only use authentic ingredients, not highly processed stuff. I see that the old man has finished getting whatever it was he was looking for and walked away. So I hurry over to the cooler where the ground beef is, grab a package, and throw it in my cart before this lady can stop me. She rolls her eyes and puts the package of fake beef back in the cooler. Fine, but I'm going to follow you while you're shopping so I can educate you on how you're harming the planet. I guarantee you that by the time I'm finished, you're not going to want to eat that. I think it's more likely that you're going to be kicked out of the store for harassing me. She pretends to not hear me and proceeds to follow me to the spice aisle, ranting about all the ways people like me are destroying the planet. I try my best to tune her out while I browse the spice rack looking for thyme, basil, oregano, garlic, and onion powder. I remained completely silent while browsing the drinks section, continuing to try my best to tell myself that her ranting is just another form of elevator music. I should also mention that I'm going out of my way to make sure we walk back and forth across the store in search of my items. The aisles with tomato sauce and various types of pasta, which I still hadn't gotten, are located close to the spice aisle, while the drinks section was located several aisles away. I'm thinking that she'll eventually get tired of following me around and leave me alone. Man, was I wrong. When we get to the aisle where the tomato sauce is, I break my silence. You know that fruits and vegetables are still alive when you eat them? They can feel pain too, and they make high-pitched sounds when you cut them open. Too high for us to hear, but other animals can hear them. I then pick up a can of tomato sauce and put it in my cart. I bet these ground-up tomatoes are just screaming their little tomato heads off inside this can, all the while dying a slow, painful death. I can only imagine how they'll react once I put them in a hot pan with a bunch of spices. Now, I'm not sure how accurate what I just told this lady actually is, but I'm determined to punch holes in her logic. But fruits and vegetables are plants. Plants are supposed to be eaten. Animals are not. I started laughing and said, "If that's so, then why are there so many carnivorous animals?" "That's completely different. They're animals. We're humans." Did she really just say that? At this point, I look around and see that people are beginning to stare at us. Hopefully they're just staring because of her weirdness and not me. Well, compared to other animals, humans at least don't play with their food before we eat it. Ever see lions hunt? They subject their prey to a slow, painful death. Oh, that reminds me, I need to get cat food. I actually didn't need to get cat food, as I had plenty of it at home, and I prefer to get it from the pet store as they had a wider variety and better prices. But I figured I might as well have some fun with this lady, so we walk all the way to the other side of the store where the household and pet supplies are. They make vegan cat food, you know. Yes, and cats are unable to digest it. It makes them sick. Cats are carnivores. Their systems aren't equipped to digest plants. That's not true. They eat catnip. Only because it gets them high. It's an occasional treat for them. They wouldn't be able to live off of it. It would be like trying to live entirely off of marijuana. Whatever. People shouldn't keep cats as pets anyway. They're an invasive species. They kill birds. The less cats there are in the world, the better. All the more reason why people should adopt them and feed them stuff like this so they won't kill birds. Also, cats originally were bred by farmers to catch mice. Because mice are pests that destroy crops. You know, vegan food. I began browsing the canned cat food, making sure to announce the flavors I'm picking out as I'm putting them in my cart. At this point, I'm no longer annoyed by this lady and, in fact, am enjoying myself. Let's see here. We've got chicken and liver feast, grilled turkey feast, savory salmon feast, ocean whitefish and tuna feast. Oh, and beef feast and gravy. My cat loves that. I say all this with an evil grin on my face. The lady looks absolutely horrified. Welp, I've got everything I need. Time to check out. I walk over to the self-checkout. The lady, of course, follows me. I take the package of ground beef out of the cart and I'm about to scan it when she sticks her hand out in front of me, totally disregarding social distancing rules despite claiming that everything I'm doing is destroying the planet. I refuse to let you buy any of that stuff. The employee on duty walks over to us. Ma'am, you've been harassing this young man and disturbing the other customers. I need you to leave right now. No, you can't make me. I'm doing the planet a favor, the employee tells her. Well, you need to find a way of doing so that doesn't involve harassing people. If you don't leave now, I'm going to call the police. Go ahead and call them. They have no reason to arrest me. Yes, they do. You're trespassing and causing a disturbance. This is your last chance to leave now. Ugh, fine. But this isn't over. I'm going to see to it that this store is banned from selling non-vegan products. Good luck with that. Now leave, ma'am. She then turns to leave. As she's walking out the sliding door, she turns around and yells at me. And you, young man, I hope you think about all the harm you and your cat are causing the planet while you're enjoying your dinner. Shame on you. She's finally gone, and the employee turns to me. I do apologize. This isn't the first time she's been in here harassing customers. We're trying to get her permanently banned. It's fine. It actually was kind of entertaining towards the end. I finished paying for my stuff, walked out to my car, put the groceries in the trunk, and drove away. As I'm pulling out of the parking lot, I catch one last glimpse of the weird lady walking away from the shopping center with a defeated expression on her face. The pasta was delicious, and my cat enjoyed his beef with gravy. Story 6. This revenge wasn't my story, but my friend who doesn't have a Reddit account. Don't worry, he gave me his permission to share. Let's call my friend Chris. This happened years ago when both of us were still kids, maybe around 10 years old. Chris was notorious for being bullied by a single bully. Let's name him Kyle. Why? I have no idea. As for me, I was a victim too, but not as bad. Most things done to me, I can just brush it off. Kyle and Chris are about the same age, but Kyle is much bigger and tougher. For some reason, Kyle is always extra rough on Chris. Apparently wedgie and locker shoving is too mild for Kyle to dish it on Chris. The things he does are far too rough, such as tearing Chris' homeworks, sharp pencil throwing. It drew blood on numerous occasions, and one time, Kyle even cut a hole in Chris' backpack that when he lifted it up to carry, stuff would fall everywhere. Chris tried to fight Kyle once in a while, but Kyle is just a weight level above. Think of a welterweight trying to fight a heavyweight. The level of unfairness is huge. He brought it up to the teacher and even guidance counselor numerous times, but for some reason, they always see it as boys will be boys and brush it off as mild roughhousing. Chris' parents are timid folks and have zero backbone to show. For some reason, they can't bring it upon themselves to muster courage to defend their own son, no matter how much Chris begged and pleaded. One day, during class, Chris had the urge to do #2, got permission to leave, and in the hallway, he happened to meet Kyle. Usual bullying happens, and when Kyle realizes why Chris is in the hallway, Kyle bullied Chris even more, stalling him, until Chris actually peed and soiled himself. Kyle ran to the end of the hallway, then pretended to just walked into the same hallway where Chris had the accident. Pretended to just realize what happened. He pointed and laughed, bringing attention to a bunch of teachers and students nearby. Lots of other students were laughing as well, calling Chris a bunch of names, causing him to have a breakdown in the middle of the hallway. That was the last straw that broke Chris' back. A couple weeks after the soil incident, we went on our school trip to a ranch. I forgot the name, but it was located somewhere in a dry and hot area. Surrounding the ranch were random bushes of cacti with various shapes of needles too. There are warning signs everywhere to stay in the distance from the cacti. The thing that Kyle did not know about Chris, he loved watching WWE. His parents, for some reason, allowed him to watch it, not pay-per-view, at such a young age. Chris and I played wrestling a couple times before, so I already know how much the show had influenced him. He did a couple moves from WWE that left me surprised, yet amused. Kyle, being an obnoxious bully, tried to scare a bunch of students by bringing them close to the cacti when the teachers weren't looking. One of the students actually got pricked on the shin and Kyle just laughed. Chris has had enough, ran towards Kyle Usain Bolt speed, and just dropkicked him straight on the chest. Chris knew pushing Kyle won't do a thing because of the difference in weight. Dropkick, however, not only surprised Kyle, but if performed correctly, will knock back anyone that lowers their guard. WWE taught Chris well. The moment Chris' feet made a connection to Kyle's chest, Kyle staggered, tripped, and fell straight into a bunch of cacti. Various needles, hair thin, short, long, thick, barbed, you name it, is now all over Kyle's body. What's worse is, since it's hot, Kyle was wearing only a tank top, shorts, and flip-flops. Absolutely zero defense against the cacti. Kyle screamed in agony while crying bloody murder. Chris, once realizing what he had just done, quietly but swiftly marched himself to blend with the crowd, pretending to act surprised on what just happened. One of the teachers saw Kyle's situation and called for backup right away. A bunch of teachers came, and they all had the same look of horror because they don't know what to do. They couldn't just release him until knowing the next step, because here's the damage. Kyle got a bunch of needles on his feet, so standing up isn't an option. His sandals got knocked off his feet when he fell. Most of the needles are on his back, so laying down isn't an option either. On his stomach? No can do as well. When Kyle fell on the cacti, a bunch of the small cacti flew into the air and landed on his front torso. Nowhere is safe. The faculty decided to pull the needles from his feet first, while Kyle is still resting on the bed of cacti, still crying incoherently, and screamed once in a while when needles are pulled. It takes around 10 minutes while muttering, "How did this happen?" over and over. Surprisingly, no one ratted Chris out. Instead, they quietly talked over themselves and thanked Chris for his odd brand of revenge. After his feet were clean of needles, they pulled Kyle to stand on his feet. Another scream, another cry. One of the teachers went to us and proceeded to guide us himself, while the rest of the faculty worked on Kyle's body. Sadly, we missed the 2 hours of screaming content from Kyle. After the tour had ended, we went back to our starting point, and at last, we met with Kyle and the rest of the faculty. They asked for Chris because Kyle told them that Chris did this to him. However, the students, including me, bonded together and defended Chris tooth and nail. We all told the faculty that Chris had been with us the whole time and Kyle just tripped on his own because he wore flip-flops. Surprisingly, the faculty believed us and instead reprimanded Kyle for wearing flip-flops to the ranch. Kyle left flabbergasted, but still sobbing from the pain. His body looked like a murder scene, Band-Aid everywhere, random blood trickle here and there. It was an art. After that day, Chris brought a tiny hand-sized cactus plant to the school every single day. He said that his parents wanted him to learn about responsibility by taking care of the tiny plant. The faculty bought his story, but that's not the real reason why. He brought the cactus plant to warn Kyle that Chris was done with his bullying and not afraid to stand up to him again. Every time Kyle saw Chris with the cactus, he ran away. I guess Kyle now has developed some sort of PTSD against cacti.